Gonna hit. Oh. Go.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Mike McDude, live from Marin County, California, USA, which, yeah, is in America. Who am I? I'm just a guy with nothing better else to do. And we talk about anything and everything on a brand new show coming to you via the World Wide Web. It's called Totally Unscripted. Totally Unscripted. Meaning, for you people in Rio Linda who are watching, for you and you
Yes,
people,
we are ripping off Rush Limbaugh.
and for you people watching in, oh gosh, let me see. How about Concord? What the hell? Because I don't want to say Vallejo or Richmond, because there I'd be...
That's racist.
I'd be called a racist. Anyway, that's a whole other story. So Mike McDude, along with Stephen Travs, author extraordinaire, friend, buddy, fellow Christian, athlete, all-around great guy. So we totally unscripted means we don't know what we're going to talk about. That I come up with the questions, he answers. Question 1, totally unscripted. Show number 2. All right. You like Steve? I'm going to kind of read this one. It says, Catholics respect the national anthem or ride the bench. So the topic is this. It's pretty interesting. The Diocese of Camden, New Jersey has a message for its high school players and coaches, Steve. And basically what they're saying, they said, any player or coach for a high school team in the diocese that does not demonstrate proper respect for the flag and the national anthem will face a 2-game suspension. I say awesome, you say what?
Well, I guess if we wanted to make for a better program, I would disagree with you, and then we could argue.
Okay, let's argue. Okay, go ahead.
Well, I'm not going to argue it.
Oh,
I'm all for respecting the national anthem, respecting
what
the
about
flag.
the poster of Colin Kaepernick in the back of your room there?
I don't have any posters of Colin Kaepernick. I don't think Colin Kaepernick's hair would fit on a poster. I used to like Colin Kaepernick. I even played baseball at the University of Nevada before Colin Kaepernick played there.
You know what, man? Let's take another step further. Since this article says, it's saying Catholics are doing what the NFL refuses to do. Well, what about the NFL? It's absurd. It's ridiculous, man. I mean, come on. We're talking about, you know what? You're the answer guy. I'll have my own take later. You answer that.
Well, the sports media has become liberal. I'm not sure when that happened in the last 5 to 10 years, I guess. Used to be that sports writers like Jim Murray and Red Smith and Jimmy Cannon, they were old school Americans who believed in America. They didn't like it when Muhammad Ali wouldn't sign up for the draft while people were dying in Vietnam. You know, I ain't got no quarrel with them Viet Cong. Well, them Viet Cong had a quarrel with the 120 million people killed by communism. You know, to quote Bobby Kennedy regarding communism, if not now, when? If not us, who? Who else was going to oppose communism as they were in the throes of killing 120 million human beings?
Yeah.
So, yes, I believe that the United States of America is a special country that is literally endowed by God. And I think you are going against decency and righteousness when you bow down before it and don't respect the flag during the national anthem.
Well, and I think, one thing, the Bishop of Camden, he's quoted as saying, football team requires young men to stand at attention. And one of the things that he says...
Let me tell you something about Camden, New Jersey, because I've been there. Camden, New Jersey is about 90% black. So, he's dealing with a lot of minority kids there. And I think he's sending a good message to them that, hey, you live in a great country. A lot of these black kids are saved by the fact that they go to these Catholic high schools.
And furthermore, this is what one of the coaches says. I love this. Helmet under the left arm, stand straight, chest out, eyes ahead. Assistant Athletic Director Frank DeRossi told the newspaper, we think it's important for our kids to do this. I love this. Come on, this is where our culture is getting lost. They don't have a respect. Your fathers, my father, your father, part of the greatest generation. Our nation was literally fighting for survival, and these kids, unfortunately, are being indoctrinated at some point. It does not take another war or act of huge terrorism for us to wake up. But what they're doing here at this high school, at this school, is really something that must transcend.
I completely agree with you. I think these sorts of traits, stand up straight, don't slouch, look like a man, act like a man. Those are the kinds of things that any good football coach or a baseball coach, like my coach Al Endress at Redwood High, he would teach that kind of thing. He promoted that kind of outward appearance. Now, in this case, I think you're talking about a school principal, but he's dealing with the football team or all the teams.
Well, right now it's the football team, but it's going to be all the teams.
Well, it probably should
obviously,
be.
Football is the prominent sport.
It should be all the teams.
Football is the prominent sport.
I think he's standing on good ground there, because when you go out for a sports team, you're involved in something of a special privilege. It's not the same as just being a student at the school, although a student at the school. Well, of course, we're talking about a private school. They're allowed to do things that a public school isn't allowed to do. The ACLU would never allow these kinds of things.
Aren't public schools in the United States? I guess we're anti-American in the public system now these days.
What, are you going to have to ask me that question?
Well, for the sake of our viewers.
I've volunteered in the public schools. They're an absolute tragedy. I mean, I'm a big fan of Martin Luther King, but you go into a public school today, and he is revered like a god, and no one knows who Dwight Eisenhower is, George Patton, Teddy Roosevelt. I doubt anyone knows two things about Abraham Lincoln. And then he and global warming are the two things that are worshipped like pagan gods in public schools. And these kids are taught that whites are just are racists and prejudiced.
So you're a racist. I'm a racist.
Well, of course,
yeah.
I'm a white Christian,
right.
Who's, and let me tell you something. Hawthorne said that families are always rising and falling in America. Well, let's take my own family. My family literally came to this country, I think, in 1630 from England. And I guess by 1920, you could say we were something of a prominent family. And I'll make this short. By 1933, because of a divorce and the Great Depression, my family on the West Coast was destitute. And a welcome wagon would come and bring food to my father. And my father was so ashamed of this, he said, I'll never allow this. It was like Scarlett O'Hara in Gone with the Wind. I'll never go hungry again. Vowed. Now, from zero money. We had no money, our family. From then, my uncle, he passed away about 12 years ago, worth somewhere between $50 and $100 million. I never saw any of it. I saw $13,000 of it, which is nice, but not much of it. But that's neither here nor there. My father didn't make that kind of money, but he had a very comfortable life. He was a high school teacher and track coach, and eventually an attorney, not a high-powered one, but he made a good living. The point being, from 1933 to 2005, the Travs family acquired, $100 million worth of wealth. And I guarantee you it was not stolen. It wasn't stolen from Indians. It wasn't stolen from blacks. It wasn't ill-gotten gains. It was dint of hard work, intelligence, education. Two men who fought in World War II, who were served in World War II, came back from the war and said, I'm going to build a business. I'm going to create a career. And they did it. And that's America. And that's what people should shoot for.
And listen, it's a great story. My father did the same deal. grew up in the projects of Portland, Oregon. His mother, single mother, raised him and my uncle and two sisters, and she was a nurse, and that's a whole other topic of conversation.
Right.
But it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
My dad they were so poor, and him and his brother actually had to steal bread to survive, coal to warm up their houses. We don't have a clue what that's like.
No.
Now listen, there's another topic that we just spoke about, the NFL, the flag situation. A very interesting topic. Again, this comes out of Michigan. Michigan School District called the historic Betsy Ross flag a symbol of hate, and profusely apologized for students displaying this flag at a football game. The football game, apparently, and basically what they're saying, superintendent says this, to wave a historical version of the flag.
I'll give you the short answer on this.
Exclusion of hate injects hostility and confusion.
Okay, here's liberalism in a nutshell. Here's liberalism in a nutshell. The biggest problem liberals have is that about 80 to 90% of the greatest things ever done by human beings on earth were generally done by white people, almost entirely by white males.
How can you say that, Steve? That's just racist.
I know it's racist. They were generally done by white people who either actually did not like blacks or didn't respect them.
Okay.
Now that's just the way it was up until the 1960s. And so what you have is you have liberals who must deal with this fact of history, right, and they have to change it.
Right.
They have to create a lie.
Well,
and so what they have to do is they have to say these great things that these people did were not great. You've got to figure out some way to convince the young that those great things that they did were not actually great. These great things your father did were not really great. These great things my father did or my uncle did, they will tell you, nah, they're not really great. There's something wrong here. There's something illegitimate about it. There's something immoral about it. There's something not right about it. Of course, they're wrong, but that is liberalism in a nutshell. And that's what we're dealing with in public schools and academia. They're trying to change history and change the facts of history.
We'll get to that. And specifically just regarding this, Steve, and our listeners out there, viewers, I should say, it went like this. It was September 9th, a football game between two predominantly white Forest Hills High, Forest Hills Central High School.
We're talking about Illinois here?
Predominantly black Ottawa Hills High School, though this was in Michigan. So it was a predominantly white school against a black school.
Mm-hmm.
And one thing is very interesting about this. Forest Hill students not only waved the Betsy Ross flag, but they also displayed a Donald Trump banner, and they are somehow contending that both these symbols are somehow racist. I mean, come on.
Well, that's, of course people are going to say they're racist. If you don't have an argument, if you're not correct, you have to create a lie. You have to create a fiction. You have to create a false narrative. And so this is what you do. Look, this is Barack Obama and Saul Alinsky. You polarize a group and shout them down and embarrass them, and you go to their house, right, and now with social media, you shame them on social media. You do all these various different kinds of things to polarize and shame them and put them in a corner, put them in a place where they don't think that they can, and nothing is easier than calling you racist. That is the scarlet letter, right, of our modern society, and you cannot be racist. And I agree, you shouldn't be racist. But calling people there's nothing that white people who are not racist despise more than being called racist. Right. And that's actually one of the reasons Trump is winning, because those people feel that they have some voice in Trump.
We got 15 seconds. I just want to say emphatically, I'm not a racist. My friend Stephen Travers is not a racist. But we're talking about very sensitive subjects. Unscripted the show. My guest Steve Travers. I'm Mike McDude. Thank you for viewing. We'll have many more coming up.